Hello everybody out there watching on YouTube, and welcome to the third of 4 events here for this week's Thanksgiving edition of Daytona Speedweek. I am Levi McIntyre, the voice of the NNSCRA Marvel Studios Cup Series, here to welcome you to the Gatorade Duels. We're getting set for 2 different 10-lap races to determine the starting lineup for the Daytona 500 tomorrow. Now, the front row is locked unless those people starting on the front row are wrecked and can't continue the duels. So the people that are locked in on the front row right now are Jessica Sheldon on the pole and Andrew Rich in the number 56 starting second. We'll talk more about Andrew Rich in duel number 2, but we're getting set for duel number 1. Now, as far as the drivers who are safe to run the Daytona 500 since they qualified in via qualifying speed are Pichu London, Paul Minnick, and Jay Jefferson. Those are the 3 drivers who are safe. We will determine 3 more drivers to start in the Daytona 500, but they have to finish well. So we shall see what happens. But let's take a look at the lineup. So right now on the front row for duel number 1, you have Jessica Sheldon and Austin LaPlante. Row 2, Pichu London, Mark Lane. Row 3, Benjamin Miles, Joshua Cooley. Row 4, Paul Minnick and DJ Curtis. Row 5, Joshua Collar, Dylan Young. Row 6, Jay Jefferson, Johnny Gardner. Row 7, Jake Rogers and Matt Haas. Row 8 is Kyle Matthews, Chris Dollarton. Row 9, Dylan Thoreau, Dylan Poteet. Row 10, Charles Jackson, James Qualls. Row 11, Carson Gum and Chris Michaels. Row 12, Anthony McCreary, PJ Williams. And then starting last is Seth Cole. With that said, let's go ahead and get the command to fire engines for Gatorade Duel number 1 at Daytona.
Drivers, start your engines.
And ladies and gentlemen, that was Ellen DeGeneres right there doing the command. So there goes all the cars going out onto the racetrack for their 1 pace lap. So yeah, 10 laps, Gatorade Duel number 1. So the scenario for Jessica Sheldon, if she can keep her car on the racetrack, she will get to keep the pole position for the Daytona 500. But if she crashes and can't continue, then she would have to start in the back of the field. So that is the big scenario for Jessica Sheldon. But other than that, we are determining who's going to start third in the Daytona 500, as well as the rest of the field on the inside lane for the Daytona 500. Whereas with duel number 2, we'll determine the outside lane and who's going to start 4th. But yeah, a lot of interesting drivers in this race to keep an eye out for. There you see 2 of the Seth Cole Motorsports drivers, Anthony McCreary and Seth Cole himself. They're going to have quite an interesting advantage of starting together in the back. Maybe they could work in tandem and work their way up through the field. Then you also got a couple of Joe Gibbs racing drivers in around that same vicinity. Carson Gum, PJ Williams. And even Dylan Thoreau is not too far ahead of those guys. We could see a lot of interesting tandems going on in this race. But we just gotta wait and see what's going to happen. As right now, the 3 drivers that are locked in on qualifying speed are Pichu London, Paul Minnick, Jay Jefferson. Who will be the other 3 to join that fray? As here we go. Boogity, 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 let's go duel racing. Well, Jessica Sheldon led that first lap, but we had an incident. Looks like Chris Dollarton was involved, as well as Dylan Poteet, Anthony McCurry, Chris Michaels, James Qualls. They all ended up getting involved in looked like a 5-car incident in the middle of turns 3 and 4. But yeah, Jessica Sheldon leads lap number 1, so with that stated, let's go ahead and take a look at the replay of what brought the caution out for the first time tonight here in the Gatorade Duels at Daytona. Well, here's a look at what happened. It looks like it's Chris Michaels. It looked like he was trying to get behind Anthony McCurry to try and push him up to the front and just didn't have enough room to make it work, and ends up turning the 61 up the racetrack into Chris Dollarton, Dylan Poteet, and James Qualls. Well, James Qualls was kind of in behind somebody. I'm not sure as to who it was. He was right behind. It looked like it was Poteet. It was Poteet. But yeah, let's look at it one more time. Yeah, right there, it looks like Michaels thought he could make that move to go behind the 61, but like I said, just couldn't quite make it work because he wasn't quite clear, and ends up turning the 61 up the racetrack, and ends up collecting 3 innocent bystanders in Chris Dollarton, Dylan Poteet, James Qualls. I don't think any of them are going to retire out of the race, but I got a feeling that a couple of those guys are not going to be up to speed. But you never know what happens here at Daytona. Strange things have happened. But let's go ahead and take you to the restart here in Gatorade Duel number 1 at Daytona. Well, after that 5-car incident, 1 car did end up retiring out of the race, and that is Dylan Poteet. So for now, Dylan Poteet would be one of the guys starting in the very back of the field for the Daytona 500 right now. But anyways, once we get to the line, we'll be halfway through duel number 1. Jessica Sheldon is your leader. Second is Austin LaPlante. Third is Paul Minnick. Fourth, Mark Lane. Fifth, Joshua Collard. Sixth is Pichu London. Seventh is Joshua Sekuli. Eighth, Jay Jefferson. Ninth, Benjamin Miles. 10th is Matt Haas. 11th is DJ Curtis. 12th is Dylan Young, 13th Jake Rogers, 14th Johnny Gardner, 15th Charles Jackson, 16th Dylan Thoreau, 17th Kyle Matthews, 18th Carson Gum, 19th Seth Cole, 20th is PJ Williams, and then you got 21st Chris Dollarton, 22nd Anthony McCurry, 23rd Chris Michaels, and 24th James Qualls. So 24 out of 25 cars still left on the track right now. And right now, the drivers who would make it in this race via finishing well in the duel, right now, those guys would be Jake Rogers, Charles Jackson, and PJ Williams, I want to say. But the pace car is in the pit road. And now we're getting set to finish the second half of duel number 1. Green flag is back out. Jessica Sheldon, decent restart, but Austin LaPlante looked like he got a bigger run. And now here he comes down low to try to go for the lead. Paul Minnick thought about going up to help Jessica Sheldon, but ends up pulling out down to the bottom to try and help Austin LaPlante, but now he's going to have a run. But right now, Austin LaPlante has the lead for the time being, but here comes Paul Minnick, like I said, with a run, but wow, Mark Lane nearly came down in front of Joshua Sekuli, and that could have been a major crash, but we avoided that somehow, some way. And it's going to be a drag race to the line. Who's going to get to lead this lap? It looks like it's going to be Minnick, but now here comes Joshua Sekuli into number 79. Joshua Sekuli, who last season was in the number 11, this season he's one of the new numbers for Furniture Row Racing, and nearly got turned by Jay Jefferson, but they somehow actually pulled away a little bit from everyone else behind them. PJ Williams going in the pit road. I'm not sure as to why. Trying to look around for anybody that may be off the pace. And yeah. Oh, and we got a crash. Jessica Sheldon was involved. Joshua Collard, Peachy London, but no caution. I don't think they spun. It looked like they just got forced up into the wall. But Jessica Sheldon's still out on the track. As long as she continues, she'll get to keep the pole. But right now we got a battle for the lead between Joshua Sakuli and newcomer rookie Jay Jefferson in the 5. Jay Jefferson is already locked into the Daytona 500 via qualifying speed, but he wants to have a higher spot in the field. So if he were to win this, he'd get to start 3rd in the Daytona 500, but here comes veteran Dylan Young. Excuse me. But yeah, Dylan Young's starting to play his hand right now, and it looks like this race is going to come down to from Jay Jefferson all the way back to Matt Haas. You have a little... Kyle Matthews looked like he just put Carson Gum right into the wall. I don't know what the deal was all about with that. But it looks like the top 11 or so are going to be the ones to settle it out for this win. But yes, Sakuli has that spot right now, and Dylan Young blocks Mark Lane for that 2nd spot, because Mark Lane had a huge run, and the two realized and decided to come down right in front of him. But Sakuli's going to lead us to the white flag. White flag is out in duel number 1. And we still got duel number 2 to come here in just a moment. Last chance for drivers to try and make something work. And I think I heard another car get into the wall, or maybe not, I was just maybe hearing things. But yeah, Joshua Sakuli has a decent gap between himself and Dylan Young, who's in 2nd right now. Charles Jackson working his way up through the field. He's trying to get a decent starting spot as well. But it doesn't look like anybody's going to go by the 79 as we're off of 4 coming down the trioval. Checkered flag waving. Joshua Sakuli wins Gatorade Duel number 1 at Daytona. Great win for that 79 team. So Joshua Sakuli will get to start 3rd in the Daytona 500 since Jessica Sheldon still lasted on the racetrack and continues, so Jessica Sheldon will get to keep the pole. But let's look at the rest of the results. Dylan Young comes out with a solid run in 2nd. He'll get to start 5th in the Daytona 500. Charles Jackson with a great run in 3rd. He'll get to start 7th. Austin LaPlante in 4th. He'll get to start 9th, I believe. Yes, he will get to start 9th. And then Jake Rogers comes out 5th and will start 11th. And then Matt Haas, Jay Jefferson, Paul Minnick, Benjamin Miles, and Mark Lane. That was who finished in the top 10. And then there you see the rest of the top 20. DJ Curtis, Johnny Gardner, Dylan Thoreau, Seth Cole, Kyle Matthews, Carson Gum, Chris Michaels, Chris Dollerton, Joshua Collard, Peachy London, Jessica Sheldon, Anthony McCurry, James Qualls, PJ Williams, and then the one car out of the race was Dylan Potee. Now, who were the 3 drivers that made it in via finishing well? Those 3 would be Charles Jackson, Jake Rogers, and then... I think PJ Williams. I guess we didn't have very many go or go homers in this race, so I believe that's the 3 that made it in. So they were Charles Jackson, Jake Rogers. I'm just trying to double check. Yeah, Charles Jackson, Jake Rogers, and yes, PJ Williams. So those were the 3 who have made it in via finishing well. They joined Peachy London, not Benjamin Miles, Peachy London. I can't remember off the top of my head. I have to look back. I apologize for stuttering there. But anyways, congrats to Joshua Sakuli for winning duel number 1. Stick around in just a moment as we're getting set for duel number 2. And welcome back to duel number 2, Gatorade Duel number 2, as we get set to determine who's going to start on the outside lane for the Daytona 500. So, with that being stated, let's take a look and see the starting lineup for duel number 2. As we look at it, Andrew Rich right now would be the guy to start second in the Daytona 500. Same scenario as Jessica Shelton. If he can continue the race and not retire out of into the garage, he'll get to keep that spot. Starting next to him will be JT Bryant. Row 2 is David Rivera, Ashland Boyd. Row 3, Dougie Shears, Preston Plord. Row 4, James Shelley, Phil Parker. Row 5, Jonathan Zorline and Charles Sanford. Row 6, William Brock, Dylan Jacobs. Row 7, Trent Dunham, Emmanuel Hartnett. Row 8, Jake Baskinger, Tim Walsh. Row 9, Zach Flickinger, Tim Fiegel. Row 10, James McLeod, Rafael LeDuc. Row 11, Kyle Keefe, Zachary Fitzwater. Row 12, Dorian Facepuncher, Sean Galligan. And then starting last is Matt McIntyre. Let's go ahead and get the command to fire engines for Gatorade Duel number 2 at Daytona.
Drivers, start your engines!
Sadly, that wasn't Ellen DeGeneres that time. Oh well. So yeah, and as far as I remember, and I apologize in advance for this little freeze up. I need to get something on my screen here. But anyways, like I was about to say, so the 3 drivers that made it in via qualifying speed are ironically Andrew Rich, Ashland Boyd, and Dougie Shears. So those are the 3 who are safe for the Daytona 500. So they don't have to worry about a thing, and they'll still be in the race. But Andrew Rich has a lot more to worry about. He has to make sure he's still on the track by the end of the race if he wants to keep his starting spot for the Daytona 500 in second. So, whoever wins, if Andrew Rich does not win Gatorade Duel number 2, the person who wins will get to start 4th in the Daytona 500, and it basically determines the outside lane for the race. Now, this race, to my knowledge, I believe has the most go or go home drivers in a field for the duel, so we will definitely get to see a fight over who's going to get one of those 3 remaining spots in the Daytona 500. As we are awaiting the rest of the drivers to get bunched up properly in this pack. So yeah, I'm looking through the field, and I believe the go-go homers we have in this field, we have Zachary Fitzwater's one, James McLeod, Zach Flickinger. We got quite a few in this field. We'll have to double-check here after this first lap. But the pace car is in, which means it's time to go duel racing again! Well, JT Bryant led lap number 1, and he is the defending Daytona 500 winner. And now here comes the defending series champion, David Rivera. He's wanting to get a better starting spot for the race, but here comes William Brock. Oh, there went Preston Plord. There he is. He somehow saved it. Oh, careful. It looks like he's going to blend back into the pack, so he ain't going to really lose the draft. Although there is a bit of a separation between Tim Fiegel and then to James McLeod. Nearly contact. with James Shelley and Charles Sanford. I think everybody's still going to remain in the pack just fine. But now a new leader at the line, Dylan Jacobs. But now here comes Trent Dunham with help from Emmanuel Hartnett in the 20. So like I was trying to get at before we went under green, is who are the go-or-go homers in this field that are not locked into the race? Well, William Brock is one of them. Tim Walsh is another. Jake Baskinger, Zach Flickinger. I'm not sure about Phil Parker. Oh, there we go. Oh, this is going to be a big wreck. Big wreck. That took out quite a couple of people. Emmanuel Hartnett being one in particular. JT Bryan, who ended up getting sideswiped. He's now in pit road. Preston Plord sideswiped in. David Rivera got damage. Trying to get up to the leader, and there he is, Dylan Jacobs, still your leader in this race. So it looks like once we get back to green, no cautions are going to need to have to come out if they want to finish. But yeah, Dylan Jacobs leads duel number 2. Let's go ahead and take a look at the replay of what brought the caution out for the second time overall tonight here in the Gatorade Duels at Daytona. Well, here's a look at what happened, and first off you see JT Bryan kind of get bounced around a little bit, but that's not what caused the wreck. Right there, it looked, I couldn't really quite tell what happened. Let's rewind and take a look at it. Yeah, it just looked like Tim Walsh just ran up and just flat out turned the 20 and started this whole mess, and then just ends up collecting JT Bryan, David Rivera, Phil Parker, Jake Baskinger got involved. And even Andrew Rich got a little piece of it, but managed to keep it straight after the fact. And then right there, Preston Plord ended up sideswiping the 71 of James Shelley, but he's still managing to keep it going. But yeah, after that crash, it separated the field quite a good bit. But who knows how the field's going to go now when we get back to racing. And speaking of which, let's take you to the restart here in Gatorade Duel number 2 at Daytona. Well, after that last caution, only one car retired out of the race after that, and that was JT Bryan. So it looks like we have the last row official, and that is Dylan Poteet, JT Bryan. So they will have to start in the very back of the field now. But when we get back to racing, it will be 3 laps to go. So final chance for a lot of these drivers who need to make it in to the race to try and make something work. But anyways, Dylan Jacobs is your leader. Second is William Brock, who's one of the 3 to make it in right now. Third is Trent Dunham. Fourth, Tim Walsh, who's the second one. And then fifth, Zach Flickinger, who would be the third one. Sixth is Jonathan Zorleen. Seventh is Charles Sanford. Eighth is James McLeod. Ninth, Preston Plord. 10th, Rafael Leduc. 11th is Matt McIntyre. 12th is Dorian Facepuncher. 13th is Zachary Fitzwater. 14th, Sean Galligan. 15th, David Rivera. 16th, Andrew Rich. 17th is Tim Fiegel. 18th, Preston Plord. 19th, James Shelley. 20th, Jake Baskinger. 21st, Ashland Boyd. 22nd is Dougie Shears. 23rd, Phil Parker. 24th is Emmanuel Hartnett, as everybody's trying to bunch up to the pack. And the pace car's in pit road, which means now we are back underway. 3 laps to go in Gatorade Duel number 2. Dylan Jacobs, this is kind of almost a mirror of the restart from Duel number 1, where Sheldon went going, but then LaPlante went up high and then went down low, and a caution's out again. It looks like it was an incident between James Shelley and Emmanuel Hartnett. So they're going to race it back to the line. So this is the last gasp for anybody to make it up to the Daytona 500 Go Homers top 3 via finishing well. Right now it's William Brock, Zach Flickinger, and Tim Walsh. James McLeod trying to get there because he's the deadline driver. He's trying to make a run happen. I don't know if he can get there in time or not. It's going to be a drag race, but I don't think he's going to get it. And William Brock leads at the caution and may have just won Gatorade Duel number 2 as a result of this caution coming out. But then again, the results or the standings are not official until after the race. So that's that. But while we wait, let's go ahead and take a look at the replay of what brought the caution out for the final time here in Gatorade Duel number 2 at Daytona. Well, this wreck essentially gets started with this restart, and where it looked like, couldn't tell, it may have been Andrew Rich who didn't quite get going on that restart, and Dougie Shears, he just flat out jumped that restart, and then as a result, he's going to get into the 71 of James Shelley and turn him around, and then Shelley gets hit by Jake Baskinger, as well as Ashland Boyd and Emmanuel Hartnett. So that just took away James Shelley's chance of any final chance he had of making the Daytona 500, all because of a big mistake on two drivers' parts. Andrew Rich for not getting quite going on that restart, and Dougie Shears for jumping the restart and swiping into the 71. So I got a feeling that whole thing could have been avoided if drivers were a little more patient. But with that said, let's take you to the final results in Gatorade Duel number 2. Well, we are coming to take the checkered flag here for Gatorade Duel number 2. And it looks like it's going to be rookie William Brock in the 01 Sierra Mist Ford for Stewart-Haas Racing, who wins Gatorade Duel number 2 at Daytona. So William Brock gets an automatic locked up spot for the Daytona 500 via finishing well. Who are the other three that made it? Zach Flickinger, who finished 3rd, and Tim Walsh, who finished 4th. So they will make the Daytona 500 as a result of finishing well in Gatorade Duel number 2. But let's look at the rest of the results. Trent Dunham with a solid run in 2nd. He will get to start 6th in the Daytona 500. And then after Flickinger and Walsh, you got Dylan Jacobs, who finished 5th, and he's going to end up starting 12th in the Daytona 500. Then the rest of the top 10, James McLeod, Preston Plord, Matt McIntyre, Charles Sanford, Jonathan Zorline. Then the rest of the top 20, Rafael LeDuc, Dorian Facepuncher, Sean Galligan, Zachary Fitzwater, Phil Parker, Preston Plord, David Rivera, Ashland Boyd, Jake Baskinger, and Andrew Rich. He is going to keep his 2nd starting position in the Daytona 500. And then you had Emmanuel Hartnett, James Shelley, and then 2 cars a lap down, Tim Fiegel and Dougie Shears. I think they both got penalized for jumping the restart right there. And then JT Bryant ended up out of the race, so he will start dead last in the Daytona 500. But thank you guys for watching the Gatorade Duels, as here after this, it will be your look at the official starting lineup for the Daytona 500. Thank you guys for watching. See you tomorrow on Thanksgiving for the Daytona 500.